Hey, what's up guys, it's James Diamond here and welcome back to the next episode here on Sonic Academy of how to make a Psytrance track. So over the last good few episodes we've been creating this really cool kind of 8-bar loop with all of the atmospheric effects, and we were most recently looking at some acid lines and how to kind of create that kind of typical stuttered acid effect sound. So we've got a really good foundation for the track and a very cool loop, and this episode we're going to start to look at getting some melodic ideas in there because at the moment it's very kind of stripped in the sense that it's all the same key and there's not much movement or things like that. So we're going to start adding some melodic sounds to it. And what we're going to do is we're going to add in some pads. So we're going to be looking at this from the point of what our breakdown sounds are going to be. So let's get some pads in there to start with. Give it a colour, and of course we're going to open up Anna. And let's just rename that pads. Give it the colour. And then we'll link that to this mixer channel here. So let's go ahead and find a nice pad sound to start with. I think that sounds quite nice, quite an atmospheric type pad. So let's go ahead and have a look and see what we can come up with. So we're working in the key of F, so our first note is going to be F. And then we're working in the key of F minor, so we need to remember that we need to make sure that these are going to be in, the notes are going to fit within the F minor chord. So let's maybe knock this down, let's put an extra octave down there. So that's our kind of bass notes. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly add some EQ and just cut off the bottom area here. It's a bit better. So we're in the key of F minor. So let's add in the fifth of the key, which will be C. And then let's add an extra F octave. And then the A flat, which makes it the minor. So that's the F, which is the first, the A flat, which is the minor third, and then let's add in the C up top. So that sounds quite cool. And then let's go ahead and work on our arrangement, so our chord progressions. So let's try moving it down to the fourth, which is the B flat. That sounds quite cool, so that sounds already quite a nice little movement. What I like to do with my pads is that I have the middle notes and the bottom notes kind of doing the chord progression, really kind of spelling out the chord for you, and then I use the top notes to actually create the kind of almost melody. It's like a top line in itself. So you can hear that even though we've moved these bottom notes down to the B flat, we're putting in the D flat up here, and this is kind of creating that extra movement up the top. So we go ahead and fill in the rest of the chords. So we're going to do another B flat here, and then we're also going to do the fifth of the B flat chord, which is going to be an F, and then let's mix it up and we'll put a second in there as well, which is going to be the C, as we'll repeat the C here. So that sounds pretty cool. If I remove this C, see how it sounds. That sounds pretty cool already, but if I put the C back in, kind of gives just an extra bit of dissonance. It kind of makes it a little bit more ominous, which is pretty cool. So the next chord, maybe it sounds like it goes down, starts and then goes down. Maybe we should move back up, so let's try to the D flat. And then let's put an extra D flat there. Might as well go ahead and put a third octave. And then within the D flat chord, Let's put the F and an A flat. And then I'm wondering what to do with the top note. Maybe let's drag this across and see how that sounds. So that's pretty cool. Maybe let's extend this out here. So at this point you could really then go ahead and do whatever you wanted. A lot of it, again, it's just going to be trial and error. If you don't know the chords or you don't know what note's going to come next, then literally as you've got your bottom chords, your kind of progression already set out, you can then just play around with the top notes and see what fits. So just from listening to that, I could hear that after this E flat here, it felt like it could move back up again, and I think this the F sounded quite nice after that. And all I did was clicked on the E flat, clicked on the E, and clicked on the F, and I could clearly hear that that was great and a nice chord progression. That sounded pretty cool. I think now let's then just copy this F minor chord and go back to it. What I'm going to do here, I think it's because it's going up, I'm going to then go back down afterwards. So I don't want to go to the D flat, I think we'll try the E flat. So that sounds quite cool, and then I'm guessing the last chord progression is going to be back to the D flat. So let's just chuck that in there. Let's go ahead and fill in the E flat chord. It's probably going to be from the C, probably going to go down to the B flat there. And within the E flat minor chord, I believe, there's going to be a G. And let's then add in another E flat here. So that's sounding pretty cool, coming together quite nicely. I think the next notes, so I'm following these top notes here. So I think that should work. If you want to play the notes without actually pressing play, so you don't have to start from the beginning, you just want to quickly hear, you can press this little playback button here, and then all you have to do is just click. So that's quite a handy little tool just to quickly hear what you've put in. So you can play the entire chord itself without actually having to press play. So we've got the D flat chord, so we could probably put a D flat in here. I think we can put the F in to create the chord. Now let's have a listen to this. So that's sounding really nice indeed. So obviously it helps quite a lot knowing kind of what notes go in the chords and things like that. But really, when I was kind of originally creating this chord progression, I was just really going down by the bottom notes and listening to, I put the first chord in, and then I kind of felt, well, where does it need to go next? So I thought it could go down, the chord progression could go down, so then I found out that the B flat kind of worked quite nicely, and then filled in the chords, and then, kind of had the feeling it would go back up again. So a lot of it will be trial and error, especially with these top notes, finding out a kind of nice top line to it. Definitely helps having some sort of kind of theoretical knowledge of chord progressions and keys and things like that. But then it's not to say that people with no kind of theory knowledge at all couldn't produce a really great chord progression. So let's go ahead and just chuck that into our project. And I think we're just going to build maybe like a small kind of 16 bar loop here of just some sounds, some melodic ideas. I think just to help us get the kind of feel to it, let's go ahead and add in an effects kick. So I've got some nice effects kicks here from the Sonic Academy Ultimate Effects sample pack. So that one's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and drop that in and have a listen to this. Pretty cool. Maybe let's get this down sweep just to help, and maybe the crash as well. Liking the sound of that. This pad, maybe it's a bit too much, to be honest. There's a couple of ways. Might be able to find a slightly kind of, maybe not as an aggressive sounding one, but I do like the kind of ethereal sound to it. So maybe let's have a look and see if we can do something with it. Thinking maybe if we put a kind of trance gate or something on it to make it kind of not as aggressive and a bit more kind of atmospheric. So let's try out some of these gates and see how they sound. That's pretty cool. Let's try the second one. Liking that one. Let's try the third. Not really sure this middle section here, but let's try the second one. Yeah, really liking the sound of that. It kind of makes it's a bit more psytrancey. I think before it was very kind of atmospheric, maybe too atmospheric. It's more kind of, for like an uplifting trance breakdown or something a bit more kind of melodic based. So I think we'll stick with that for the time being. So we've got the pads in there. We obviously, we need to put in our breakdown sub, the kind of sub pads that we're going to be using to fill up the low spectrum whilst we're in the kind of break area and things like that. So really, you can really create these kind of pads with these bass pads with any kind of pad sound really, as long as it's got a nice kind of low end to it. I've actually got one set up already. So this is from Sonic Academy Volume 3. It's in pads and it's just a JP pad. So let's just quickly give this a blue. And give it a blue again. Let's link it to a mixer channel. I'm just going to move this effects kick. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bottom notes, so these are the root notes of the chord progression, and I'm just going to paste that in to the piano roll, and let's have a listen to see how that sounds. So as you can hear with this kind of bass pad itself, it's got quite a nice low end to it already. I can play around with the filter here. So it sounds, obviously there's more bass when you pull the filter up, but I like that kind of thickness that it has when the cutoff is down. So I actually want to hear some of that pad within the sound itself. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some EQ. To help boost the low end, and then I'm going to use the fruity bass boost just to give it that little bit extra of a boost down in this area. So I'm just going to play around with the frequency and the amount to get something that sounds pretty good. So I think the 80 Hertz area sounds quite nice. You can see on the frequency analyzer there that the notes were all kind of hitting the same amount of decibels, so that was nice, keep it consistent. So let's put this into the project and see how that sounds. That's quite cool, liking the sound of that so far. Obviously it sounds pretty dry, so maybe let's try and fill it up with some extra sound effects that we've got going on here. In fact, let's take what we've got already and put it in there. So that's sounding quite nice, starting to build up very nicely indeed. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to add in some small vocal snippets. So let's find the right one. I believe it is this one. So this is just something that I recorded in my studio, just some very small kind of vocal ad-libs that I recorded, not with the best microphone, but it works quite well. This isn't going to be, you know, a vocal track, so the recording didn't necessarily have to be the best it could be. Obviously you can hear a little bit of background sound, but what we're going to do, we're going to disguise it, and we're going to kind of meld this into the mix a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I don't actually want the sounds to be playing straight as it is. So let's just have a listen and see how it sounds at the moment. So clearly we can tell straight away that it's in the wrong key. Now I know for a fact that I recorded this in G, so we're just going to double click, we're going to go to time stretching, we're going to go to the pitch, and we're going to knock this down by 2 semitones, or a tone, so that goes from G to F sharp to F, and now that should be in the right key. So we got that in the right key, but it still sounds very strange indeed. What I'm going to do, I don't want it to be as it is like that. I'm going to do a little technique which I do quite a lot in my own productions, is reverse the vocals. And I love reversing vocals because they bring on a completely new sound to the project. They don't sound just very straight. It gives a little bit kind of more atmosphere and this kind of, you know, the sucking effect, the way that the vocals, when the singer sings from loud to quiet, is obviously reversed to quiet to loud. So let's have a listen to that. So that's got a pretty cool effect. So it's very dry at the moment, very dry indeed, so let's just go ahead and put some effects onto it. A little bit of EQ, just a small boost on the top end to give it some air. And I think let's go ahead and add some delay as well, just a standard delay we've been using throughout. Let's just have a quick listen to this. So already that's given it a new kind of edge to it. So let's go ahead and add some reverb. And I want to probably add quite a lot of reverb to this. So let's turn up the percentage here and maybe turn up the decay as well. Let's turn it to a big room, color warmer, add a little bit extra in the high end to it. And let's have a listen. So that's sounding quite nice already. Obviously it's taken on a completely different sound now. It's sounding much, much bigger. Let's have a listen to see how this sounds in the mix. Yes, that's sounding pretty cool. Maybe let's just move it to the left so that it starts on the beat and then ends at the end of the bar. And I'm thinking let's maybe do the same as what we've done with the pads. Let's actually put the gross beat, let's put the trance gate on and see how that sounds. I like the sound of that. That really kind of melds with the pads a little bit better. It's down the middle at the moment, so I'm going to go ahead and move it all the way out to the sides, as we've been doing with lots of different sounds. It's using the stereo shaper, putting it to 17.1, and so that's going to move it to the far left and far right. So let's have a listen to this. Sounded really nice indeed. The only one thing that I don't particularly like about the pads is that they're maybe now a bit too kind of stop-start. It is not much kind of fluidity to it. I know obviously we put the gross beat in to make it the kind of stop-start and make it the trance gate, but I feel that maybe if we just put an extra bit of reverb after the gate, then it's going to go through the trance gate, it's going to do the kind of stop-start, and then it's going to have a little bit extra tail afterwards as well with some reverb. So let's just have a listen to this. So that sounds pretty cool. That's given it a little bit extra kind of more bigger kind of sound, bigger space in the mix. So let's put this all together. Pretty cool indeed. I think that's starting to sound very, very nice. Starting to build up these melodic sounds. I think let's just go ahead and maybe put in one extra sound. Let's add in a pluck, some sort of nice pluck to go in to accompany everything else. So let's call this pluck break. And let's give it a colour, this nice kind of cyan, I guess, colour here. We're going to go ahead and add Anna again. Let's rename pluck break. Give it a colour. And I've got a pluck set up already, which I found very, very nice sound indeed. So let's put this to a mixer channel. I'll just play a couple of notes. Pretty cool. I really like the sound of that when I found it. I realised that it's maybe not your traditional kind of trancey pluck, but it's got the kind of release character that I wanted. Where you can hear that the sound, the tail of the sound tails off a little bit. It doesn't just stop straight away. So first thing I'm going to do, I quite like to do this when I'm trying to work out a kind of pluck riff to go with my track, is that I like to actually add some effects on before I even actually work out the MIDI that I'm going to do. Now the reason that I do this is because it gives more of an idea of how it's going to sound in the mix when you're playing with everything else. It kind of obviously delay can help a riff sound You know, it can double it up, it can give it a bit more movement, a bit more kind of space. Same goes with the reverb. So it's just going to help me get more of an idea of how I want this pluck leads to sound. And then we can go back and kind of play around with the reverb and delay and see how that sounds. So I'll just play the note on the pluck, not the transition effects. So even though I've got pretty minimal effects already, that sounds quite nice. So what I want to do actually, I want to follow the chord progression. So I'm going to copy the chord progression root notes there, and I'm just going to paste them in. Now I don't want these to play while I am working out the chord or the pluck riff that it's going to do, so I'm just going to click on the mute button up here, and then I'm going to click and drag, and I'm just going to mute all of them. As you can now see they've turned grey. And what I want to do, I want to have a kind of ARPy kind of riff going along. So let's start with the C. And I kind of get the feeling that it's a bit too fast. So I think I might get the feeling I want to do that, so it'd be like the 4 notes, another 4 notes, changing with the chord progression, another 4 notes, and so forth. So let's add this in, let's copy and paste that. It might be worth just playing the pads and things in the background to see how that sounds first. Just copy these across. So it sounds okay, but it's not quite in the right key. So I want to change some of the notes to match the chord progressions as we go along. So first one sounds fine, as it's the F minor. Let's change the second one so it works with the B flat. So we want to change the A flat to the B flat, and then let's knock up this C to D flat. So already you can hear that's got a little bit of an edge to it. So the next one is D flat. So let's change that to the D flat. So that top note didn't really work quite well. Obviously we're in the D flat and that was playing a C, so let's move it to the D flat. And I guess we're going to have to do the same with this one here. That sounds quite cool, so let's go ahead and move these back over. We're moving back to the F minor. So these notes are just exactly the same as these notes here. So now that we've moved down a key again, we've moved to the E flat. We could try moving this C up to the E flat. Doesn't really sound quite right actually, so maybe let's move it down to the B flat, so it's in the E minor chord, I think it is. E flat minor. Oh, E flat major chord, it might be. So let's listen to this. Yeah, so that last one was a little bit off, so we'll move it to the E flat major chord. So we're going to move the F down to the E flat. We're going to move the A flat down to the G. And let's move the top C down to the B flat to create the E major chord. E flat major chord, sorry. So that sounds a bit more in key. And then we've got the D flat. So let's copy this D flat chord, ARP chord over here and see how that sounds. kind of get the feeling that it might want to move down there, to be honest. So we're following these bottom notes going downwards. Let's try that. So I'm liking the sound of that. It's giving it a very, very nice kind of ominous type feel to it. It's sounding really cool indeed. Let's copy this last D flat chord over there. So that sounds pretty cool. Not so sure on the delay settings that we've got. I think we could probably make this sound a little bit better. So I'm just going to play with the time settings here and see what kind of delay sound we can get. So that's quite cool. That's given it a quite nice kind of call and answer sound. I might want to make this a little bit bigger on the old reverb though, just to make it kind of sit back in the mix. It's a little bit kind of at the front right now, so maybe let's just knock up the reverb. Let's give it a bit more decay as well. So I'm liking the sound of that very much indeed. It's got a very kind of cool sound to it. It's not too kind of floaty, you know, kind of hands up in the air type style. That's not what we're really going for here. We're going for a more kind of atmospheric, quite ominous type style breakdown. So that's some nice kind of melodic ideas that we've got going on there. I'm thinking maybe let's just add in one extra sound. So Sonic Academy have got some really great vocals that are available on their website, and they kindly sent them over to me, and all I wanted was a single kind of vocal hit. So I actually had a look through these vocals, and I believe it was from this hero pack here. This is the one. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drag and drop that into the project, and literally the way that I worked this out was because I just heard that very, very first vocal hit there. So this is obviously, you know, it's a kind of a poppy type sounding vocal,
and I don't know your name,
which is pretty cool. These are really great just for kind of getting extra little vocal hits and things like that. So you can go through,
my coat.
So you could chop and mix those up and things. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this very, very first vocal hit here, and then I'm going to make this unique. So that has now created a new copy of the sound. Here's the original, and we're just going to delete this original because we don't need this in here, and it's quite a big file. It's going to take up some space. Let's delete that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm now, hopefully if this works, I'm going to add this to a sampler. So I'm going to go channel, add new, and we're going to add in the sampler, and then I'm simply going to open the sampler. I'm going to double click on the vocal, and I'm going to drag and drop this
cold-hearted hero.
onto the sampler, and hopefully this is going to work.
Be my cold-hearted hero.
No, so that is the wrong way of doing it. Ignore me. We need to render this out. So at the moment it's obviously still got the entire track, the entire vocal in there. So let's just render this to my desktop. And let's go back to our sampler. Let's just delete this. Let's add a new sampler. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sampler. We're going to click the load button. We're going to go to my desktop. We're going to hit the Fox hit one. So here we go. Now that is loaded it as the single sample that we rendered out. Pretty cool. For some reason when you press play it's continuously playing it over and over again. So I believe if we hit this use loop points here, it deactivates that, so now it's just playing the one hit. So we can go ahead and get rid of that. Now we've got this as an actual we should do. Let's just get rid of this. There we go. Now we've got this as a MIDI clip. It's a MIDI clip, but it's playing the actual vocal sample itself. So let's just link this to a mixer channel. And I think maybe let's play it at the start of every bar. So you can clearly hear that it's out of key, and I think it's very, very close though, so let's just knock it down by one semitone. There we go. That's a bit better. Now it's in key. So let's just go ahead and add some EQ. And we're going to add lots and lots of reverbs. This is going to be a nice kind of hit in the background that we're going to be using. So that sounded pretty cool, like the idea of that. Obviously it sounds a kind of bit odd in places, there was too much going on, especially with this vocal hit coming in there. So maybe, you know, once we get to the structuring stage, we'll have a look and see which sections, which sounds work best together and which ones to take out, which ones to bring in. So there we go. So that was the kind of melodic section. That's really all I'm going to do for it at the moment. Doesn't really need to be too many melodic ideas, as the breakdown is going to be focusing on a different kind of area, which we will come to over the next few videos when we're going to start structuring it out. So at the moment we've got a very nice kind of loop going on, we've got all our kind of melodic ideas. This is really now the time that I want to kind of start structuring it out. So that's what we're going to be looking at over the next few episodes. Okay, we'll see you then. Cheers.